This is the Canadian Critic coming to you with my first zombie movie rundown. Now, given this is my first video, I think it's only right to start with the movie that started it all. Now, while some people might consider I Walked with a Zombie or White Zombie the first real zombie film, for my money, it's Night of the Living Dead that's the true godfather of all zombie movies. Night provided the framework for what we now understand to be the traditional walking zombie. The shambling pace, the moaning gurgle, the cannibalistic urges, and the idea that you have to remove the head or destroy the brain to kill a zombie all originated from this film. In many ways, the zombies from Night are the ones that are used to measure all the other walking corpses that have come since. However, some aspects of zombie lore introduced in Night haven't carried over into the mainstream concept of a zombie. For instance, the fleshers in Night appear to be utterly terrified of fire, and the characters even use this to their advantage several times in the film. In later zombie movies, both Romero and otherwise, this apparent fear would be dropped. This actually makes a lot of sense when you think about it. I mean, the zombies are weak enough already in most of these films. If they're also scared of fire, it might become just a little bit too easy to overcome them. Another concept introduced in Night that was largely dropped is the idea that zombies use tools. Several zombies in Night can be seen using stones or clubs to try to break into the farmhouse, and this use of tools would carry over into later Romero films. Thankfully, this trope was largely dropped from most other zombie series. While it arguably makes some sense that zombies would retain the use of tools, I prefer my Walking Dead to dispatch the victims with teeth rather than stones. The zombies themselves are actually very impressive looking, especially when you consider the fact that these amateur actors were mostly just friends or clients of the filmmakers. The fact that some of these zombies look truly disturbing is a testament to a really talented makeup team, especially when you consider the fact that this was made in 1968. Granted, a lot of these extras look a bit more like homeless drunks rather than The Walking Dead, but quite a few of them look even better than a lot of the zombies I've seen in modern amateur horror films. Given that the zombies in this film are of the traditional shambling variety, most of the tension is going to come from the arguments and fights among the survivors. Cooper and Ben are by far the most interesting of all these characters, and their debate as if they should stay and defend the house or retreat to the basement will dominate most of the movie. The young farm boy Tom will attempt to serve as a mediator between these two more interesting personalities, though nothing really interesting will ever come from his character. Though Cooper did come across as at least a little bit sensible at the beginning of the movie, his paranoia and desperation will slowly drive him to act like an ever greater jackass, which will culminate in the deaths of several characters. But while the male characters actually do a fairly good job holding your attention, the female survivors may be some of the most boring characters I've ever encountered, not to mention all of them being monumentally incompetent. Barbara really is just about the weakest character in this entire movie. She spends the majority of the film just sitting on the couch. Really, that's it. The zombies are breaking in, and she's on the couch. People are dying, and she's on the couch. You know, really, aside from the twist at the end where her reanimated brother kills her, Barbara doesn't really add that much to the film. I mean, I kind of feel like she could have been off quite a bit earlier and the movie would have gone on just about the same. Unfortunately, Judy isn't actually much better. After she leaves the basement, she immediately just sits down on that damn couch. Seriously, I'm not quite sure why, but this couch seems to be a magnet for useless women. Judy doesn't even have any lines by the first 10 minutes screen time. She kind of just sits there and plays with her hair and stares at people who are actually getting work done. Through the film, Judy will leave the couch for no reason and run out to join her boyfriend when he goes to get gas. Now, I want you to pay very close attention to Tom's face right there. This is the face of a man who can't comprehend just how mind-bendingly retarded his girlfriend is being. What does she think she's going to accomplish? Is she going to help? I wonder how this is going to end for Tom and Judy.
I took his car.
There.
So, Judy and Barbara kind of set the bar low for female characters in this film, and so it's pretty easy for someone like Helen to come across as being well written. I mean, she's not totally incompetent. She has motivations to protect her child, and it's interesting to watch how her marriage is on the fringe with her tiny little arguments with her husband. That being said, she doesn't really do much in the movie either, except provide an excellent death scene near the end of the film. To a modern horror fan, Hound's death might not seem like too big a deal. I mean, it's not even too gory. But at the time, the image of her reanimated daughter butchering Helen would have been absolutely horrifying. And I would argue that this scene represents one of the most famous zombie kills. And you know what? 50 years later, when you look back, it can still be kind of unnerving. Looking past the action, I believe that one of the most underappreciated aspects of this film is the radio. Not only do the constant news broadcasts provide a convenient source of exposition, but they also really serve to set up the
Because of the
atmosphere.
obvious threat to
It
untold
really
numbers of
drives
citizens,
home the idea
and
of
because of the
living
crisis
under
which is
siege.
even now
I mean,
developing,
seriously,
this radio
this is
station will remain
fantastic,
on
this
the air
broadcast
day and
sounds.
night. This starts from witnesses to the effect that people who acted as though they were in a kind of trance were killing and eating their victims, prompted authorities to examine the bodies of some of the victims. Medical authorities in Cumberland have concluded that in all cases, the killers are eating the flesh of the people they murdered. Repeating this latest bulletin just received moments ago from Cumberland, Maryland, civil defense authorities have told newsmen that murder victims show evidence of having been partially devoured by their murderers. Medical examination of victims' bodies shows conclusively that the killers are eating the flesh of the people they kill.
It is important to realize that there is one underlying message that runs through every single of Romero's Of the Dead series. Basically, people suck. That's the central message of this entire movie, from the needless combativeness of Cooper and Ben to the cold-hearted nature of the cleanup squad that kills Ben. This movie is trying to show just how inhuman humans can be. Romero basically uses all of his zombie films to argue that human beings can be just as savage as the zombies. Though, unfortunately for Romero, while he does this perfectly in Night, with each subsequent movie this message becomes more and more ham-fisted and poorly executed. Though, luckily his later works will also touch on other subjects such as rampant consumerism and social inequities, so his failure to convey his central thesis won't be quite so obvious. At the end of the day, Night of the Living Dead is a pretty damn good movie. Some of the kills are no longer quite show-stalking, the female characters are painfully boring, and the decision to cast a black man lead role is no longer revolutionary. But aside from that, the movie really does hold up. That being said, if you're looking for a film to use to introduce a friend to the zombie genre, I'd really have to recommend the 1990 remake, which I personally consider to be an even better film. Well, thanks for bearing through my review of the original Night of the Living Dead. To be totally honest, this is the first video I've ever made. It's probably a little bit rough around the edges, but I'm sure I'll get better practice. This has been the Canadian Critic, coming to you live from the Great White North.